What is up, you guys, and welcome back to Growing Upstairs. We're so glad you joined us today. Now to your hosts, Noah and Holden.
Hey. What up? We are back.
Back. We're back. What up, everybody?
Welcome, man. Sometimes I look at us and I'm like, we're kind of goobers.
I live my life every day knowing that. No, I wake up, look in the mirror, and I go, look at that goober right there. Look at him. Just look at him, boys.
Man, it's good to be back in the podcast studio.
I'm going to be honest with you. You do kind of get a little bit refreshed. I know some people are like, man, I kind of wish you guys were still doing it every week. But this every other week, it does give you that refreshingness. So when you come back, it's like, nice. Man, I'm fired up. I'm excited. And it still feels like it's almost weekly. Yeah. It kind of feels that way anyways. Hey, we are so glad you guys are here today, watching, listening, wherever you're listening on podcast, if you're watching us on YouTube. We talked about this last week. Shows and stuff that you wonder what people look like. I wonder if there have been people who have gone to YouTube and they went, nope, not what I thought those people were going to look
Probably
like.
So.
After we talked about that the other week with our other leaders going through everything. But Noah, how have things been going here over the last week or so since we last came on?
Yeah, things have been going all right. Yesterday wasn't very fun. Had to watch Florida State lose yesterday, so that wasn't a great time. But but other than that, life itself, things that have true meaning, we'll get to that later, have been going pretty good. The work's been good and keeping me busy and working. I've realized I haven't been to Walmart quite as much here recently.
Oh, really?
So that's been pretty good.
That's an improvement.
I've been going with a list and getting everything that I need at one time so that I'm prepared for the week and don't have to just randomly go to a Walmart on Wednesday. Yeah. So
let me ask you that: how often do you actually still go, doggone it, I still forgot something?
I do. I do that a lot still. Really? But I just put it on my little list and say, I guess I'll get it next time.
Yeah, I'll get it next time.
I'm tired of going to Walmart, man.
Walmart is just, what was that? God, are you speaking to us? That ain't even going to come through the podcast. They're going to be like, what are they talking about? It sounded like a gorilla just growled at us outside.
Yeah. Anyways, nervous.
Yeah, I know. It's over there by your window at least. So they'll get you first.
It's coming for me.
I've been kind of the same way. It's been busy. We've got a lot that's going on at work and all that good stuff, but it's been good. I know we had kickoff since the last time we talked. You know, we had kickoff that Wednesday, and we had a lot of kids here. That was awesome, kind of getting things started for youth. My wife had the flu.
Oh man,
so I was kind of out this past Wednesday. I'm gonna tell you, man, when I don't come on Wednesdays, like when you're just regularly going every Wednesday and everything, when I don't come on Wednesdays, I'm like, something's missing in my life.
I miss my people.
I miss my people and hanging out with my people and getting to get deeper into the Word and all of the good things.
And by the time this podcast comes out, we will have had Jersey night. So
I got to go get a jersey.
You don't have a jersey?
Nah, not really. You know,
I got one I can let you wear.
Nope, not gonna do that. I'll just wear a hat. I can wear a shirt. Can I? Can that count? Nah, sure. It doesn't feel like it does.
You can wear a baseball jersey.
I could find a jersey. Yeah, well, I guess I could do that. I could put a Braves jersey on. But that kind of defeats the purpose of college football kickoff, though. But anyways, so we got that coming. Hopefully, hey, we're gonna rock back with some music this week too.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Kind of get back into the music groove of things. Very exciting. All right, so this is obviously Growing Upstairs. If you guys hadn't figured it out by now, and if you've never watched us before, that's Noah. I am Holden, and we're glad to be here. The purpose of this show, as always, is growing with God together, where we talk about Jesus, life, music, and plenty more. And I've got one question before we really dive into the show. And I heard this the other day. I was like, this is a great question to bring onto the podcast. So I'm going to ask you the same question, and then I'll try to answer it the best I can afterwards.
I'm nervous.
There's nothing to be nervous about. Don't worry. So, we cut up about...
Yes. No, I'm kidding.
That's funny. So we cut up about Barefoot's Joe the other day. But if you could have a cup of coffee with Jesus, what's the one question you would ask him?
Oh, geez.
Right?
That's tough.
And deep.
Very deep.
But if you just had... I think about this. Like, we like drinking coffee. For me, trying to figure out what coffee there is to drink. But then if you just had that opportunity, just ask him one question. You get to sit down and drink coffee with him, and he brews it. What is one question that you just like out of everything?
I think one of the things it'd be pretty cool to ask or talk about would just be that time when Jesus was here on earth. just to, because we always talk about how much context is key, and we know so much about the time just through history and the way that we have Scripture and the Bible to tell us about that time when Jesus was here on earth. But just to get a firsthand one-on-one question with him about, tell me about that time.
Yeah.
What was it really like, so I can have more context to better understand, what you went through and how tough that was, but how being holy and 100% man and 100% God, went through that time. I feel like that would be pretty cool.
That's a deep one, but that's a really good way to put it. How you're holy and you're also man and you're God, all the things at the same time. How does that work? That's a great question. And the question I've kind of had running in my mind, and I've gone so far as here lately, like I'm trying to write, we try to write a little bit of music that we haven't put out, but hopefully one day in the future that could be coming. You never know. But anyways, one of the songs and thoughts that came to my mind is, why me? Why me? Because you think about how he came to earth at that time, and what makes him choose us? What makes us somebody that he looks at and he goes, worthy?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a deep question when I sit and think about it, and he may have the simplest answer. But that's a question I would want to ask, is why me? Like, of all people on earth, of all the people that do good and great things, not that we don't, but why me?
Yeah. It's good too.
What about us that just makes you say they're worthy, they're enough?
Yeah.
Deep and intrinsic thought there.
Man, that's deep. We're getting deep early.
I know.
I saw somebody the other day, I don't know why, I just randomly thought about this. Somebody posted something on Facebook or something. It was like, next time you get sad, remember that you're alive during the time of Raising Cane's chicken box or whatever. But that's funny. But thinking about that, it's also true of, we're alive right now. Like, we're alive for a purpose right now. More on that later.
Yeah.
And but I just think about that. Like you were saying, why now? Why us? Why me here in this time when we're living in this place, in this moment, in this time? Why?
Yeah.
So that's a great question.
It's like, man, I'm broken. I know that I'm broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of other people in this world that are broken too. And just, why me? What makes you choose us to be the ones to further your kingdom and to call others in? I don't know. It's just a thought that kind of crossed the brain.
That's some good stuff right there.
That's what I went to. Well, let's make it a little bit more lighthearted. You got a minute that you want to get to real quick?
Man, I'm ready to be random.
I got to click my little button here in just a second. Let me get some music going first. Here we go. Why do my music buttons not work when I want them to? Here we go.
What is up? Welcome back to Noah's Random Minute. Now the timer's on, so we got to get going. So, Holden, real quick, just to fill you in, I have really began to understand and work on using ChatGPT.
Okay.
Have you ever used it?
No, I can't say I have.
So, like, I've made ChatGPT make me a workout that I've been doing. Me and ChatGPT are getting on a good friendship.
Good terms here, okay.
Yeah, good terms. So, I asked ChatGPT today to give me a random fact.
All right.
I think this is a pretty good one. Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and are still perfectly edible.
Good Lord.
Isn't that crazy?
That is kind of wild. So that makes me wonder, when I go to Walmart later and I get a thing of honey, is there going to be an expiration date on it?
If there is, just disregard it.
Disregard it. So I guess it's one of those.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. So I guess it's one of those, even if it has it on there, the FDA or whatever it is, they have to put something on there maybe.
Yeah. Time's up.
You reckon that's what it is? Time's up, because that is Noah's Random Minute.
So yeah, who knew ChatGPT could,
kind of helps you in all different ways. But seriously, I think that's why I think like food stuff that they put on the shelf, there has to be an expiration date.
Probably so.
Because otherwise people would look at it and be like, I'm a little skeptical of this, but honey never goes bad.
But now, if you've got that honey that's been sitting in the back of your pantry for 3.5 years, it's still some good. Yeah,
I threw
get it out, make you a peanut butter and banana and honey sandwich.
I threw some away not long ago because I was like, this has got to be old. Why didn't I have this minute earlier in my life?
Man, I'm telling you, some of this information is useful.
It is very useful. That's the point of the whole thing. Is
exactly.
What did we put on the bottom of it? It's Things
Random
you didn't
facts
know
you didn't know you needed to know.
Yeah, that's it. That's good stuff. All right. So we've gone through the minute. We've started off with some of the topics. Enjoyed kickoff a couple of weeks. So college football's back this week. And I'm going to touch on this lightly because I think it's kind of going to run right into what's going to be our topic this week.
Yeah.
FSU played Georgia Tech. They played in Dublin. Here's the thing.
Not Georgia either.
No.
Dublin, Ireland.
Dublin, Ireland.
Hey.
Did it matter? And I just want to ask it this way. Did it matter that they played in Dublin? Was that a benefit for either team? I think both teams, it was really kind of a...
Probably not.
Didn't really matter. Didn't really matter that either team was there, right? Could you say that it was meaningless?
The fact that they played in Dublin?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably so.
I guess there's the side of it that it does at least. It's like, okay, well, we're getting the sport out there to another country, so to speak. But it was not a home field advantage for either team from America over here. And just to lightly touch on it, because like you said off the top there, it was a tough game. It was a good game. I mean, it wasn't a bad one to watch if you were just...
It's entertaining if you're not a fan of either team. Very
true. But at the end of the day, we're gonna kind of I'll save the end of that at least for what we're about to get into with our raising the meter. You got any kind of stories? I don't really have any stories this week before jumping into things. Let's go ahead and just raise the meter real quick. How about that? We fixing to raise the... We fixing to raise the... That's entirely too long. I'm going to have to shorten it. I say it every week, but eventually I'm actually going to click the button and shorten something up here. All right, so this week we're talking about, you and I guess it's been a couple of weeks now since we recorded and all, but we went through the book of Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
And a lot of this book is life meaningless? And I think most scholars believe that Solomon was the one that wrote this book. And if you know anything about Solomon went through a lot of life and had a lot of gains in a bunch of different ways between knowledge, between finances, I mean, you name it, Solomon pretty much had it.
Think Bill Gates, Elon Musk, big names.
Put them all together.
Yeah.
And that's Solomon in today's age. Had all of these things, but at the end of the day, what did he find? He found that most everything is what we talked about a little bit kind of coming into this, meaningless.
Meaningless.
And
you see that word a lot in Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, and if you want to kind of touch on exactly what is meaningless, you kind of have a deeper version of it, I think.
Well, like we've talked about a little bit before coming on the air, that is a word we see so much when we were going through Ecclesiastes. Almost every single chapter we went through, this is meaningless. Something, X is meaningless. And you get to that last little bit and he talks about, meaningless, everything under the sun or something like that. I can't remember the exact verse. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, everything is meaningless. And so that kind of led me and Holden to, this today and do this podcast is like, is life meaningless? Yeah. So that's kind of what we want to look at as we go through it. But it's also important, I was doing some digging while we were studying, watching some videos and Blue Letter Bible, like some concordance type stuff to look at. Translations and all that kind of stuff to get a little bit deeper with it.
Yeah.
Because I kept reading it and, meaningless, and I'm like, I really want to understand what he's meaning by this. And so some of the stuff that I came across was that in Hebrew, like the translation is hevel, Hevel, hevel. And so that verse would actually read hevel, everything is hevel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at the definition of hevel is like a vapor or smoke, or like smoke of, like when you have a fire, you have smoke. So it's like a vapor in the wind type deal. And so it's almost like in Ecclesiastes, when we see the word meaningless, it's Solomon is telling us it's hevel. It's like a vapor, or it's like a wind or a breeze. So that's an important kind of lens to look through when we're going through Ecclesiastes, when we're talking about is life meaningless for the sake of this podcast, is this idea of hevel, vapor.
Vapor, I like it. And that's also a part that comes up when he talks about that, let's just say knowledge in this sense, because one of the first things we're going to come into is actually going to be talking about wisdom and how it's like a vapor in the wind. He even mentions that in one of the verses there, that it's like that. But that's the first thing we come to that Solomon really wants to know more about. He wants to have all the wisdom in the world, and he asks God for that. And you find out, in life, is wisdom something that is going to give you meaning? Is wisdom something that is meaningless? Does it matter if you have all the wisdom in the world? And that's going to be kind of the question I pose here as we first start this thing.
Yeah.
So where do you kind of, in reading through Ecclesiastes, obviously we kind of know the answers, but to kind of give those that are, and let me go ahead and start with this too. I probably should have said this off the top here. Ecclesiastes is a very, very difficult book to go through, because as you read, if you don't have a lot of context, or you don't really have like an accountability partner or somebody that you're able to read through and give you different perspective of this book, you can find yourself feeling really dark about this book, because meaningless, like Noah said, that's the word that comes up over and over and over again in this book. And I want us to kind of dive down into these specific parts and talk about them a little bit, and let you understand the difference and what's meaningless about it and what might not be. So starting off there with wisdom.
Yeah. I think, wisdom or knowledge, it's important. It's important to want to have that wisdom of the scriptures and knowledge and stuff. But I mean, even if you look at the Pharisees in the time of Jesus, when he was alive and on the earth, and they had all of the knowledge. They were the religious teachers. They had all the knowledge. They knew everything. They knew the scriptures so well that they were able to even quote them and try to misinterpret them and all to get Jesus. And so you see that they have that wisdom and that knowledge. But at the end of the day, what's so important is our relationship with him, growing in our walk with him, and that kind of thing. I mean, what would you kind of say?
I kind of, a lot of the same thing. You can have so much knowledge about everything, everything under the sun, and that's what, God gave this gift to Solomon, to have this knowledge and to have this wisdom that he did. And this is where we kind of get that fleeting in the wind verse that comes out there. But I can know everything there is to know about a butterfly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I'm not doing anything with a butterfly, what does it matter?
Yeah, and I was kind of gonna say something like that too. It's like my Holden can tell me. My parents told me growing up, don't touch the stove. The stove's hot.
That's true.
Like if I know I have the knowledge that a stove hot, stove equals hot. You will get burned, and I can be told that my whole life and have that in my head and know, okay, when that stove turns red, I don't need to touch it.
Exactly.
But like you said, if you really know that when you do touch it and you feel how hot it is. And so if we can have all the knowledge in the world. In fact, there are atheists and people who hate Christianity and God and everything that have tons of knowledge. You could probably argue with a lot of Christians, with knowledge, but they don't have that relationship with the Lord. And so, that's kind of what I was getting at with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's even the knowledge of, like, I think it's in the Bible as well, that like demons, they even believe and know who Jesus is, and they know not to mess with him, obviously. But they have that same knowledge as well, and yet they're not on the right side.
And so I think kind of what we're getting at with Ecclesiastes is like chasing the knowledge for the sake of the knowledge, to say you have the knowledge.
Exactly.
There's no meaning in that.
Come on.
It's like a vapor. It's like a smoke. Just chasing that knowledge to have it. But when you chase that knowledge to have the relationship with Christ, that's where the fruit's at.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he reads in here, he described it as madness and folly, a chasing after the wind, in verse 17 of the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, if you guys wanted to go through and read. But his assessment was that no matter how much wisdom humankind possesses, that it is ultimately futile compared to God's wisdom and his plan. Because that's another part of it too. We start to get this knowledge. We have this wisdom that we do, and we think, man, we know best. We know that, I mean, even Brother Derek talked about it a little bit this morning, man, we've got our own plan, this is how we think it's going to go. And it's not. God has his own plan that we have to follow, and we kind of fall in line with as time goes. So wisdom, in a way, and we'll kind of wrap all this stuff at the end in a pretty little bow to try to make it understandable. But at the end of the day, having wisdom, like you said, I love the way that you versed that, was having wisdom for the sake of wisdom is meaningless. Especially, and a lot of this I think also goes back to, does it further the kingdom?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it makes it in that same way meaningless. So the next thing in his pursuit was pleasure. So though Solomon could have had anything his heart desired and pursued these pleasures with perfect wisdom, nothing that he found would satisfy him.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we talk about it just like wisdom off of there. If you have, and that's the other thing, that it was kind of like a stacking of like attributes, It's not just that he had all of this wisdom and then that wisdom went away and now it was, all right, go chase these pleasures.
Yeah.
It was, he still had all the wisdom in the world and still chased after these things to try to find something in his heart that was missing. There was a void there. And this was to the next question. You've got all this wisdom, all these things, and you think, okay, pleasure, let's go after this. Let's see where this leads. Can it lead to any kind of meaning in your life?
Yeah, I think it kind of falls into that same, boat that we're talking about the wisdom with. And a lot of times we talk about wisdom and things like, pleasure and all. I think back to Graves in the Gardens and that first lyric, I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. And, man's empty praise and the treasures and those kind of things, they're never enough. Yeah. And so, the pleasures, like I think about, getting a chance to go to a game like that in Ireland. There's a lot of pleasure in that. There's a lot of fun in that. It wouldn't have been a lot of fun being there and having to fly back home after all of that, because just, driving back to my house after the game, I was like, sad. Anyway, but, getting to go to a big concert, if your favorite, singer's in concert, there's fun in that, there's pleasure in that. But ultimately, those things will never fill us. They'll it's like, yes, during that moment in time, it's like, this is a lot of fun. I'm having fun with this. Yeah. But when it's over, it's kind of like,
and that you brought it back to exactly where I was going to bring it back to when I started with the conversation of going to Dublin and all that thing. At the end of the day, FSU lost, and that's not fun when you're a fan of that team. But at the end of the day, does it actually matter?
No.
And that's the hardest part, especially, I got a Georgia hat on. When Georgia loses, because the time's going to come, they're not going to go 46-0 over the next, 3 years. They're eventually going to lose a football game, and it's going to stink. It's not going to be fun, but it's meaningless in the grand scheme of things. And I like how you said it there in that same way, concerts. There's so many different aspects to what pleasure is in people's mind. People have a lot of different, avenues that they go down to find these things. Yeah. And we've given a couple of examples of things that we find to be pleasurable in that way. Going to a football game, going to a concert, having all these fun, playing pickleball and stuff like that. It's fun. It's exciting things to do. But at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, again, if it brings no love and glory to the kingdom at the end of the day, it's a vapor. Yeah. Which is, it's a hard thing to think when it's hey, FSU, a vapor in the wind. Yeah. Sorry, I had to
we can't get to heaven and say, I was a Seminole booster for 25 years.
That's right, because Jesus is going to look at you and go, yeah, what did you do for my kingdom? What did you boost in my kingdom? Yeah. So that's another good way to look at it. Here's the next one. We kind of touched about this. It might have been a couple of episodes ago. I can't remember if it was last episode, but the work of your hands, that was the next step that Solomon kind of went through. What do the work of my hands, does that start to actually bring meaning to my life? You're working, and this is where, again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the difference in works to get you to heaven and then works on earth like that you're doing in general, and found the same thing. Can I work in my life enough to where it brings meaning to my life?
No. Just simply put, no. And I think a lot of times we live our lives in a way that reflects that we believe that, that we work in a way that we almost let work become just all-encompassing. Oh, yeah. we let it just take over, and we take work. We feel like we take work home in some ways. Yeah. We're constantly thinking about it, and it's a good thing to be thinking. You want to be a good steward of what God's given you. Yeah. You want to honor Him in your work and be a good representation for Him in your work. I work at a bank, and Holden helps with working at the plantation and stuff. And so there's different things we can do in our work, our job. That I'm constantly talking to someone. Oh yeah. Whether it be a coworker or a person of the community, a customer. And so it's important to be a representation of Christ to those people. Yeah. Every chance we get. But it's also important to realize that the work we're doing there does not define us.
Yeah.
In a way, like we're defined by Christ.
Yeah.
And so from salvation, our work, we do works to bring Him the glory.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Even in our secular jobs, something like me working at the bank, I can work in a way that does bring Him glory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is, what's most important.
Yeah, and that's, the end of the day, I think it's even in the Bible as well that it's not that we're not to work. No, that's not a way for me to say, hey, quit your day job and just sit at the house on the couch. Don't do that. That's not what we're telling you, because it is meaningful in an aspect of a human life, something that we have to do day in and day out. It's something that we do, but it's also to keep in your mind that who you're working for and what you work for is not your master at the end of the day. Yeah. It doesn't matter who owns the bank. It doesn't matter who owns whatever business it is that you work for. That is not your master. At the end of the day, Christ is the one that we're trying to satisfy in the end, and He is the one that we work for under the umbrella of everything. Now, go ahead. Sorry.
I think a lot of times, we can get caught up in saying, oh, well, Noah's a banker, or Holden's what would you define?
Assistant manager.
Like we define people by those things. So-and-so does this, or so-and-so is a nurse, or this person's a doctor. But how much different would the world be if we looked at somebody as, oh, Holden's a child of God.
Yeah.
Or, I know that this person is not saved. And so we see that person as, we need to go pursue sharing Christ with them. I think, that those are worldly definitions of people.
Yeah.
Their job titles. And it's important. It's important to know, oh, well, I need to go see a doctor. I know so-and-so's a good doctor.
Oh, yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And Solomon kind of wraps it up like this, talking about the work of his hands. This tool, although good and meaningful aspect of life, we talk about meaning in the human existence here, it also leads to frustration, failure, and grief, because a lot of that while you're working too, you have those moments of work where you kind of get frustrated about a bunch of different things, or you might not like the people that you work with, or you might work in a community like at a bank or something like that, and people come in and it's like, man, y'all are on my nerves, or it's a first or the end of the month and you've got 7,000 people that are coming in trying to make transactions with you, and you're trying your best, you're keeping that God-like mentality and trying to let God exude through you in your works that you're doing on earth at least, and it's like everybody wants to test your patience at the end of that, but in the end it's all meaningless from a standpoint of that. But while we're in it, doing it at least, especially in yours being with the community, you get to have like that Christ-like interaction with others that are around you. That's the only thing that makes it meaningful, is if we're helping and sharing the gospel in the same time in whatever way that we can in that time. Do you have anything else on the work of the hands?
No.
I was trying to see the last one, and this is kind of where we'll wrap this thing up on this, and it's a big one too. It's a big one to talk about because there's always conversation about this. It always comes up, and it's money. And the last one, he determined riches and wealth is what he goes through in the last step. Again, these are stacking these attributes. He's got the wisdom. He finds the pleasure. Doesn't get you anywhere. The work of his hands are obviously, it gets aggravating, but you got to do it. It's part of human life. And then it's the wealth and building the wealth and the desires of the heart to have all the riches in the world.
Yeah.
And Solomon gains that. He's got it all. The richest man to ever live, to ever walk the earth, even in today's terms, would be the richest man over anybody that we know.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the big names like you mentioned earlier. But is it meaningful?
I mean, it kind of goes right along what we've been saying with everything else. It's important for day-to-day life to live and buy food and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, having wealth is, it's a vapor. It's here today and it's gone tomorrow.
There's a song about that, isn't there?
Is it Casting Crowns?
Casting Crowns.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, if I go out, let's just say today, let's just say I've got $5,000 just sitting in my pocket, and I go.
You going to share with me?
And I see, that's a great point. Maybe Noah, you're like, hey, man, I'm behind on my rent this month. I need like $2,000 to catch me up from last month and this month. And if I just sat back and I was like, nah, man, that's okay.
This is my money.
This is my money. Or if I had just this worldly thing where I'm like, man, I'm going out and I'm buying, I don't know, I'm about to go buy a razor, riding around, not a four-wheeler, but like a razor.
You need a shave or something?
Yeah. I do kind of need to do that. But anyways, But let's just say I was like, I'm going to go use this and I'm going to get this purposefully. It's for my pleasure, the enjoyment of my life, and all of these things. Meanwhile, I have a friend here in Noah who he needs help. He needs a hand with groceries, or he needs a hand with again, like rent or something like that. Yeah. And I choose at that point in time, no, I'm going to use this for myself. I'm going to go get what I want to get, do what I want to do, and I'm not going to help somebody else out there. I walk going to buy this razor, and outside of this store, there's a homeless person sitting there. And I just keep walking and going and get my own. There is nothing in that at all exudes what it is that Christ is trying to do in your life. Mm-hmm. And when he puts people in place in your life that need that help, especially when they call out for that help, and we choose to take our wealth and our money and all of our earnings that, by the way, God gave you. He gave you the job that you got now to be able to earn this money, or in whatever way that it is that you've come across this. But it's to continue that into the kingdom of heaven by helping others around too, and showing and exuding that Christ is in your life. And instead of seeking those pleasures, and instead of seeking that wisdom, instead of seeking all of these things in life and just going, all right, I'm going to use this for myself. That's where in your life that wealth can be used. I'm not saying you can't buy anything for yourself. I'm not telling you that at all. But when something comes up and it's like, hey, you've got people out there who are asking for your help, they need your help in a different way, is not to ignore that and find meaning in it to be able to help someone. It is 100% meaningless if you do nothing with it but just waste it. It's 100% meaningless if you don't put it back into the kingdom in some way, whether it's helping somebody on the street, whether it's helping one of your friends that's going through a hard time and needs a hand with it. So I think that's another way to kind of look at it and say, how can I find a way to use this and make it somewhat meaningful, if that makes sense?
I think you hit on it pretty good too. One of the things I was going to say, kind of echoing what you were saying, was just that, God has given it to us. It's the wealth and the things that we have, if we have them, are gifts from God. And so he's given them to us, like I was saying earlier, to be a steward of it. And we need to be good stewards with our wealth and our possessions and the things we have.
Yeah, it's a great point. So kind of wrapping everything up here, where we go through all of it again. Solomon, one of the wisest men that ever, one of the wisest men. He wasn't a wise man, I don't believe. But anyways, he was one of the wisest men to ever walk the earth, had all the wisdom there could ever be. One of the wealthiest men, worked all of these things, and yet he, someone who found all and had all, still could not fill the void in his life. That was that. And found everything to be
ultimately meaningless.
Meaningless.
But, one thing that really wanted us to get to with the end of this here, as we do wrap it up, is, the question or the title of this episode is life meaningless? And to kind of answer that question, I would say no. Your life is not meaningless. Your life is you're here for a purpose. That's kind of like we were saying earlier. We're here in this time, in this moment, in this place for a reason. Yeah. God's put you here, and your life has purpose. Your life has meaning. He wants to have a relationship with you. Now, like we said, some of the things in this world that we put so much emphasis on, like our work, our wealth, like we've been talking about, those things, when we let them become more important than our relationship with God, we see it's important to remember that those things are a vapor. They're here today, they're gone tomorrow. But our relationship with Christ and Christ himself, he should be our rock. Like Brother Derek was saying this morning, he never changes. And so, but he wants to have a relationship with us, and he wants to love us. And so that's our true purpose. Our true purpose, we're made to be in that relationship with him. Yeah. But our sin separates us. We do let the things of this world that are just vapors and meaningless things, we do let those take up too much purpose in our life. There are days when I allow Florida State football to be more important than it should be, like yesterday, and so, ultimately, at the end of the day, it really, as soon as that game ended, when it started, there's really no meaning to it, but we allow that to have so much impact whenever Christ deserves our full attention. And so that there are those things in our life that we allow to become sinful, become idols, and things we give too much meaning to. But there is hope in the fact that through Christ, we can have that relationship with him. And So, if you're out there and you're listening and you're wondering, is my life meaningless? Hear me and hear us when we say God wants to have a relationship with you. There is meaning for your life in growing and walking in relationship with Him.
Yeah.
So
going back to but God from this morning that Derek was preaching about, that's where the meaning lies, is in God. And wrapping up here, we chase after everything for ourselves, but meanwhile Jesus gave up everything for us.
Yeah.
Everything. For us to find meaning too, it's we have to go beyond the Son to the Son. And that's kind of where I wrap up. Just like what you said there, Christ is the meaning behind all of it.
Yeah.
And that's where we find meaning. That's where when you're walking through this world, looking for all these things, chasing after everything, and you're not finding them, and you're going, where is it? It's because it's right there. It's in Christ. And I would encourage anybody that's out there, if you're watching, listening, reach out to us if you want to talk more about it. Comment below any kind of way that if you want to ask about it or just know more. I think I can speak for both of us to say we would love to give you any kind of wisdom that we do have, at least in this, to try to help you understand exactly what it is that when you find that your life is not meaningful, that it is meaningless, that there is a meaning in life. And I'd love to talk to you more about it and kind of help you understand exactly what it is in that.
For sure.
So that's Raising the Meter. We fixing to raise the... Just like that, Raising the Meter. I love the last episode. Meter. I couldn't get the sound going. And I kind of cracked up about it. Hey, Noah, you got a dad joke for us?
Brother, I'm never attempting a dad joke again.
I'm all dad joked out. Me and Noah were cutting up before this. Like I should make a little jingle for the dad joke. Dad jokes. I do something like that. But you got anything else for us before I dad joke us and roll us out of here?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head.
Nothing off
I
the
probably
top
think
of your
of it after we leave here and get home. And
That's generally where it is. Hey, I did think about this the other day, and I don't think we've mentioned this. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there is that you can listen, there's a 5-star rating. There's some stars at the bottom of the screen, I think on most, or somewhere around the title. Click that 5-star for us. We'd greatly appreciate that. Hit the old 5 stars.
Or you can tell us how we really feel and hurt our feelings.
And put a 1 star. Don't put a 1 star, please. And leave a review, too. All that does is help kind of get the show out there and spread the gospel more in whatever way that we can do. I probably need to go that. Yeah. I think I can do that.
If you're on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend. You can share it from YouTube to Facebook or
anywhere.
Share the link. If you're enjoying listening to us and watching us, share it with a friend.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate that. Again, all it does is help build the show and get the word out there more. All right, a couple dad jokes for you guys right here. Why did the Christian chicken go to the other side of the road?
Because there was a Chick-fil-A there?
To get a cross. I had to let it
I thought it was going to be a Chick-fil-A joke.
I can probably come up with that.
Did you hear my guess?
The Chick-fil-A? Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty good guess.
That is a good one, but
I'll quit now.
All right, last one for you. I kind of like leaving with 2. I feel like sometimes with 1, it's like it's either hit or miss. And then, anyway, sticking with the chicken here. Here we go. What kind of shoes do chickens wear? Reebok. Hey, there's that. Hey, we appreciate you guys listening or watching wherever you are out there, and we'll check in with you guys here in just a couple weeks.
Keep growing upstairs.
Peace.